Welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is the third video of HSRP protocol what I am making. So in this video, specifically I will talk about HSRP states, HSRP configuration and how to enable track if line protocol went down of the one interface and how to track if any route goes down, right? So first of all, we will discuss HSRP state. So let me show you the HSRP states first. So as you can see that there are 5 states in HSRP, right? So first state is called init state, and second state is called speak state, and third one is listening state, and fourth one is standby state, and fifth one is active state. So if I talk about initial state, in initial state, when you just enable the interface, that is called initial state. So I mean, if you go to config mode of the router or switch, right, then you type interface gig ethernet 0 or any of the interface you can choose, then this state is called initialization state, right? And if I talk about speak state, sorry, second state is listening state, right? Here is second state is listening state. In listening state, router knows the virtual IP address of the router, and it will also listen for hello packet, hello message. I mean packets from the HSRP router, other remaining routers, right? So in listening state, router knows the virtual IP, right? So if I talk about speak state, in speak state, routers actively send hello message to standby and active routers to become the standby router or active router, right? So the router will send hello message and will join the election to see which router will become the active or standby router, right? And standby router continuously sends hello message to active message to become the active router if you goes down, right? I mean, if active router goes down, then standby router will become the active router, right? It will send the hello message to know the whether you are alive or not, right? So in active state, router continuously send packets, right? Forward the packets from the clients and send the hello message toward the remaining standby routers, right? So let me show you the topology. So as you can see that from this topology, we will see the HSRP configuration and HSRP states and tracking, right? So WAN interface is called this one, right? Which is connected towards the ISP, right? And this interface, I mean gig ethernet 0, 2y0 and 3y0 is connected to the LAN interface. This interface is called the LAN interface, and this is the user, right? And these user wants to communicate towards the internet. So let's suppose if I have configured HSRP, right? So we need to assign virtual IP first, right? So this virtual IP will be gateway for this LAN user, right? So this virtual IP will become the gateway for this LAN, right? And this virtual IP only will be active on which router, that router will become the active, and on other router will not will active this virtual IP, right? If you will see, you will check this. So our command, by that command, I mean show ARP command. If you check, so only this virtual IP will be active on the active router, right? And standby router, it will not become the active router. So let's suppose if this interface will goes down, and one more thing, you have to enable only SSRP for the LAN interface, right? Not the WAN interface, right? So let's suppose if this interface goes down, so so this router will send the hello, I mean gracious R towards the switch, and this switch will send the broadcast message to the remaining router, and this router will know that oh, this router is down, so I have to become the active or standby router, right? With using the hello message, right? And this virtual IP, let's suppose at this time this R2 router is active, so this virtual IP will be active for this router, right? This will be the standby router. So in this lab, let's suppose I have configured HSRP within 10 seconds. So this router, I mean R3 router will become the active router, right? And this router will be the standby, and R1 will be R1 will be in listening state, because this router has a physical interface is the lowest IP address, I mean 192.168.1.1 is the lowest than the other routers, right? So this router's physical interface is higher than the other router, right? This router will be the active router, this will be the standby, and this will be the in listening state, right? So as you can see that I have taken 50 Mbps line from the different ISP, but in my case, I have taken one ISP, right? In real scenario, if you have taken internet line from different ISP, so ISP will be also the different, right? Let's suppose Airtel, Voda, Tata, or you can say anything, right? So in my case, I have taken only one ISP. So as you can see that these links are connected to the single ISP. So from there, you can see that R1 is connected to ISP. So it has taken 50 Mbps line, and this is the 20 Mbps for this one, 10 Mbps, right? These are the customer router, right? Which are connected to the ISP, right? So let's configure HSRP first, right? So as you can see that here, Gig Ethernet 1 by 0 is connected to the switch, right? 2 by 0 is connected to the switch, and Gig Ethernet 3 by 0 is also connected towards the switch, right? So these are the LAN interface, these are the WAN interface, right? So we have to enable HSRP for the LAN interface, right? So let's configure HSRP first. So as you can see that I have taken console of the routers, right? So here as you can see that I haven't configured SSRP on this router. So standby router, right? So standby, as you can see that if you want to check whether SSRP is enabled or not, so you have to run show standby or show standby break command, right? So let's check this one. So standby break, right? So standby, right? So let's configure SSRP first. So Gig Ethernet 1 by 0 is the primary R1 router. So for configuring SSRP, you have to configure the standby. Then group number. Group number can be from 0 to 255, right? So as you can see that group number, right? If you not configure group number, then it will select 0, right? So I'm going to configure group number 1. Standby 1 IP 192.161.100, right? This is the virtual IP, and this virtual IP will be the gateway for the LAN interface, right? LAN users, I mean. So let's configure within 10 seconds, right? So we will check that which router will become the active router and which router will become the standby router, right? Sorry, 3 by 0, right? So here, as you can see that so let's check which router will become the active or standby router. So standby. Okay. So at this time it is listening state. I mean it knows about the virtual IP, right? What I have discussed earlier in states, right? In listening state, routers knows the virtual IP. So as you can see that at this time, R3 router is the active router. So standby brief, right? So standby all, right? So as you can see that at this time, this router is the active router because this router's LAN interface the highest physical interface IP address. What I have talked about in HSRP election process condition, right? In second video, right? So you can check that. So interface, so IP interface, right? So IP interface brief. So as you can see that 192.1.3 is the LAN interface, right? This is the highest physical IP address of the router, right? So if you want to check, you can also check that this router, I mean R2 router is the standby router because this is the IP interface brief because less than the R3 router. So at this time, this router is the standby router, right? So as you can see that, and R1 will be in listening state. So standby brief. So standby all, right? So as you can see that at this time, R1 router is the listening state. So if I want to become this router, so if I want to make this router the active router, so we have to change the priority as well as we need to configure the permission command. So let me show you one thing. If this router, right, if this, I mean R1 router went down, right? So R2 router will be the active router and R3 router will be the R2 router will be the active router and R1 will be the standby, right? So because we haven't configured permission command, that's why. And priority is also the same of the all router. So let's down the R3 routers line interface, right? 3 by 0 set down. So as soon as you hit that command, so this router, I mean R2 router will become the active router. So as you can see that, to standby brief, right? So R1 will be the standby, right? So standby, right? At this time, this is the standby router, right? So if I want to make this router as a primary router, we need to configure priority, higher priority, I mean, and we need to also enable the trimmed command, right? So because this from R1 router, we have taken 50 Mbps lines from the ISP. So we need to make sure that this router always should be the active router, right? So let's configure the priority as well as permission command, right? So permission command will force that I want to become the active router because my priority is the higher than you, right? So Ethernet 1/0 standby 1 priority. I'm going to configure 200, right? If you have not configured trimmed, then this router is not going to become the primary router because this router cannot challenge that my router is higher, right? That's why we need to configure permission command also. Standby 1 trimmed, right? As soon as you hit this command, this router is going to become the active router because this router is challenging that my router is higher than you, right? So let's configure other than, right? Interface. So at this time, right, we need to configure just RP on priority as well on this router. So I'm going to configure priority for this router and R2 is 180 and here we need to also enable trimmed command, right? So let's configure R1 router as well. So no shutdown interface Ethernet 3/0 standby 1 priority. I'm going to assign 170, right, for R3 router and then one trimmed, right? So you will see that R2 router will be the standby and R1 will be the active and R3 will be in listening state. So let's check that show standby brief. As you can see that at this time it is in active state, right? Let's check the R2 router. So standby brief. So see here is the standby, right? So R2 router is in standby state, right? So let's check the R3 router as well. So standby brief. So as you can see that it is in listening state because here it is less priority than the other router. So R1 is the priority 200 and R2 is in 180 and R3 is in 170, right? So see the priority, right? So now let's assign the virtual IP to the LAN user, right? So let's check that we are able to ping or the ISP or not, right? So first of all, we need to check whether IP address has been configured or not. So IP address is configured. Let's check 8.8.8.8.8. So as you can see that at this time, its traffic is going to the R1 router, right? Because R1 router is the active router. So you can see from the trace command also. See, right? So 192.168.1.1 is configured the R1 router. So let me show you one thing. So as you can see that this virtual gateway will be active on the active router, right? So that router will be active. So this router, this virtual gateway will be active for the active router, right? So you will not see the other router. So as you can see that in our table, virtual IP address is not there. Virtual gateway, I mean, right? So traffic is going towards the primary router, I mean R1 router. So if you want to check, you can check through IP interface. So 192.168.1.1 is the R1 LAN interface, right? So now let's suppose, let me ping the continuous ping, right? From the, so as you can see that traffic is going smoothly from the primary router. So let me down the primary LAN interface, right? Interface 1/0 is set down. So as soon as I down the interface of the primary router, you will see that traffic is right. So this is the functionality of HSRP router. So as you can see that only single packet is lost, right? So at this time, R2 router will become the primary router. So you can check that SOAR table. So as you can see that this virtual gateway is active for the R2 router, right? You can, this, as you can see that an R3 router is not there, right? So at this time, R3 router will become the standby router. So standby brief. R3 is the standby router and R2 is the primary. Let me up this router. No shutdown. So standby brief. So as you can see that it is now active state, right? So standby 0. So what happens? Let me show you one thing. Let's suppose if this interface goes down, so what will happen? I mean, WAN interface, line protocol is down. So all the, let's suppose this user is right now going through the primary routers to the internet, right? So if this interface went down, so all the traffic will come to the switch, and from the switch it will come this router, right? So simply it will be dropped because this router at the, it will be the active router, but traffic will not go to the ISP, right? So let me show you the tracking command, right? From the tracking command we can easily that track the interface, right? So how to track the interface? Let me show you. First of all, let me show you the if one interface goes down, what will happen. So IP interface brief. So 1.1.2 is the WAN interface, right? So let me down this one first. Will shut down. So as you can see that traffic is dropping. We are getting the message destination host unreachable. I mean traffic is coming to the switch and from the switch it is coming towards the R1 router. But from R1 router traffic is not passing to the internet, right? Because at this time line protocol is down of the WAN interface. So at this time as you can see that it is still the active state, right? So IP interface brief. So what we need to do, we need to configure, we need to track interface tracking command, right? If interface line protocol goes down, then we need to track that interface, right? So now I'm going to interface gig Ethernet 1 by 0, no shutdown. See, let me show you, just wait a minute. Sorry, it is a 2 by interface, right? So config 2 by 0, no shutdown, so IP. So let me show you, just wait a minute. So as you can see that traffic is going. So let's configure if line protocol is goes down. So we need to configure trace, right? Trace. You can give the any of the number, trace, right? I'm going to put the 1, right? So interface, right? Gig Ethernet 2 by 0, right? If line protocol goes down. So this is the WAN interface, right? Then enter. Then we need to configure in HSRP configuration, right? So 1 by 0. So standby. If track, this track, I mean that I have configured, right? So track number 1, decrement. By default, decrement is priority is 10, right? We have already discussed in the first theory, right? So I am going to decrement 20, right? So I can replace brief, right? So standby brief. So if priority, if if line protocol will be down, then R2 router will become the active router, right? So wait a minute. So standby brief. As you can see that, right? Decrement is priority 180. We have configured in decrement 20, right? So standby brief. So it is still. So as you can see that it is still in a standby state, not it will become the active router. So we need to configure, we need to increase one more, we need to add plus 10, right? So interface gig Ethernet 1 by 0, standby 1, and track decrement, track 1, decrement. Let me remove first this one, then standby 1, track 1, decrement 30. Right, at this time it will become the standby router. So as you can see that right now it is listening state, speaking state. So wait a minute. So see, this router has been become the active router, right? So it is at this time listening state, and R3 router is the standby state, right? So this is the good method in SSRP, right? So standby break. At this time R3 is the standby state, right? So if you want to check the SSRP configuration, you can check by this command, right? So run include standby, right? So as you can see that this command I have configured on this router. So let me show you the configuration of different router. I mean R2, R3 and R1. See, this is the R3 configuration, R2 configuration, right? So you can configure one thing, interface 1 by 0, right? Standby 1, timer, right? Timer you can also decrease, right? It's going to be in millisecond. I am going to set one hello timer 1 second, right? Millisecond, right? And hold down timer is going to be 5 seconds, right? 5 milliseconds. So standby, right? So run, extend, standby, right? This is the command. So standby all, right? So standby brief. Let me describe these things. So as you can see that I have configured HSRP for the LAN interface, Gig Ethernet 1 by 0, and group number is 1, right? If you not configure group number, then it will select the group number 0, right? It is state. I mean R1 router right now is in listening state, right? File state change, right? Virtual IP, I mean virtual gateway, right? This is the virtual gateway. This virtual gateway is configured for the LAN interface, and this is the active virtual MAC address. And this 4 times 0 and 0 what I have discussed in the first video, and AC and 1 is the group number, right? This group number, and local virtual MAC address this one, and hello timer I have by default 3 seconds, but I have configured CFGD matlab configured, right? And hold down timer 10 seconds by default, but I have configured 5 milliseconds, right? Preemption is enabled. I have enabled the preemption command. As you can see that standby 1 and preempt, right? And active router is the 192.168.1.2. I mean R2 router is the active router, and that router's priority is 180, right? And standby router is 192.168.1.3, and R3 router's priority is 170, right? And configured priority is 170, right? So as you can see that R1, right? In R1, I have configured priority 200, but decrement in priority is 30. So 200 minus 30 is equal to 170. So as you can see that I have configured while configuring the track command, right? If LAN protocol will be down. So as you can see that track 1 state down statement. Currently interface is down, right? I mean one interface. Let's bring this interface up, right? Config interface terminal. Interface Gig Ethernet 2 by 0. Mode shutdown. Post and brief. So as you can see that at this time it is active state, right? So standby brief, right? R2 will be the standby state and R3 will be in listening state, right? So if you want to check show standby, right? So as you can see that there are the commands you can check. That neighbor is 1.2, right? I mean standby router, right? So you can also debug the interface, debug standby, right? I mean packets. So as you can see that packets is going, it is continuously sending after 1 second, right? By default it will send 3 seconds, but I have configured hello timer is 1 second. Every 1 second it is sending the hello message to the R2 router, I mean standby router, and vice versa, standby router is also sending the hello message to the R1 router, I mean standby router and active router. Let me undebug this command. Undebug. So from debugging command, you can inspect the what is going on inside the packet, right? So this is the all about HSRP configuration. You can configure many of the things. Let me show you one thing. So if you want to configure authentication, you can configure, right? But by default, there is no authentication is configured. So standby one. So as you can see that you can configure here authentication, right? Flow, IP, right? IPv6 MAC address. Also you configure name, print, priority, timer, track. You can configure as per your requirement. But I have configured few commands for the lab, right? So I would like to recommend you one thing. You need to understand the HSRP configuration if you are going to configure the real device, right? I mean, vendors divide different vendors. So first you need to go through the document, then you have to configure, right? So in next video, I will show you the track, right? So how to track if any of the root goes down, right? So thank you for watching this video. If you like this video, please subscribe my channel so that you can enhance my technical skills. So I would like to also request you in next video, I will also show you how HSRP in HSRP, how can we do the load balancing, right? With the help of group number. So thank you for watching this video.